What's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's live interview in the Grow Your Midterm Rental Business group. Each week, I'm going to be interviewing midterm rental hosts from across the country to talk about everything to do with midterm rentals, rental arbitrage, co-hosting, and just real estate in general. We already have some really great guests lined up for the next upcoming weeks, but we especially have an awesome guest lined up for today. Today, we have Sally Berry. Sally is located in Rochester, New York, and she actually started as an accidental landlord by renting out a one-bedroom apartment over her garage. That apartment actually evolved from a long-term rental to one of the first Airbnbs in New York State back in 2009. And in 2013, Barry switched to a midterm rental model and now invests solely in Rochester, New York. Barry has 7 midterm rentals and 3 long-term rentals that will actually be converted to MTRs in 2025. Sally's an incredibly experienced operator. Her story is just a display of overcoming challenges and achieving success. Sally, thanks so much for being on the call here today.
Thank you, Christian. I've been looking forward to this. And even though you host people from around the country, you and I are just like an hour and a half away on the on the New York Thruway. So kind of neighbors.
I know we're practically neighbors, so it's cool to be able to talk with another Western New Yorker.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Sally, well, first of all, I'd like to hear kind of like what is your background and what's your story and what's kind of led you to where you are here today with all these midterm rentals and rental properties that you have now.
Yeah, thank you. So I started out in the hospitality and tourism industry. It was there in that industry, and I loved it for about 25 years. Did a lot of traveling, which I loved, and always enjoyed, meeting new people and making sure people created memorable experiences and had great times. So, as you mentioned, that Airbnb that I kind of started up, I was a single mom, and the space over my garage, which was just really a big empty space, I decided I could maybe make some money. I had 3 kids to send through college, so turned it into just a basic rental and did that for a little bit. And then the idea of Airbnb started percolating around, and I thought that would be a really neat way to tie in with my tourism understanding of the area. So as you said, I was one of the first Airbnbs in New York State. They were primarily in California when I first got involved, just starting to spread their tentacles, and did that for a while and loved that. And then a lot of logistics with my travel. My daughter had to do a lot of the cleaning and hosting people when I was gone. And by chance, I had a request through Airbnb for a couple that were looking to retire to the Finger Lakes area, and they were looking to rent it for 6 months. So I rented it to them for 6 months, and they renewed for another couple months. And I had a realization, like, that's what I'd really rather do, is host people for a 3 to 6 month period. It's easier for me. It's, I typically have great guests. And once I did that, I realized, that's really a sweet spot for me. So before I even knew that it was called midterm rentals, I was hosting one midterm rental. And then in 2021, I just decided to take a different tack to kind of slow down my career in tourism and started buying properties in Rochester. And as you said, I'm building my portfolio. I concentrate on one zip code, primarily just because it's very efficient for me. And the houses in that zip code are really well suited to midterm rentals. And it helps me with my shiny object syndrome to stay focused.
I hear you. Wow. Okay, so you said a couple things there that I want to touch on. First, I'm just curious, that apartment that you said you had over the garage, was that already like a ready to rent an apartment, or did you have to do renovations to create that extra ADU?
Yeah, so it was just a big empty storage space. And when I decided to turn it into an apartment, I hired contractors, and we're on well water out here, so I had to have a new well dug, a new septic system, and
Okay.
yeah, I put money into it that I didn't really have. And when I got to the stage where I was starting to buy furniture and decorating it, I remember I had friends saying to me, "Oh, you must be having so much fun doing all this decorating." And all I could think was, every time I take a credit card, I feel like I'm going to throw up every time I use one, because I don't know if this is the right thing to do. And honestly, 20 years later, that one bedroom apartment's booked, it's had great tenants for a very, very long time. And it's been a great decision on our family's part to do that, for sure.
Wow, holy smokes. Yeah, it sounds like you kind of like took a big risk at that, or what felt like a big risk.
Like, will I ever make my money back? What will I do?
Right.
But and it was scary the first year. But once you start getting good tenants and start seeing some cash flow and start realizing that this can work, you just got to stick with it, and it starts spinning off cash.
Yeah, and I'm curious because I started my first Airbnb in 2018. So you started, I mean, 8 or 9 years ago, before 8 or 9 years before I started. Um, were there any like differences that you noticed back in 2009, 2010 when you were hosting as opposed to 2018, 2020, and so on?
Yeah.
Was it easier? Was there less competition? Were you making more money, less money? I'm
I would say
curious.
there's definitely way less competition, way less competition. There was really nothing around where I was at all. And I'm in the Finger Lakes region, which is a very popular vacation region. And at the time, there's very few hotels around where I am. There's some bed and breakfast, but really lodging was really lacking. So I was booked a lot. I would say one of the biggest changes was when I started, there was no app yet. So I was forever having to sign into my computer. And when
Oh
I
my
was
God.
traveling, I had to call my daughter. And so it's obviously the tech has gotten so much stronger and so much more robust and agile in the years since I've done it. Um, but there was, yeah, it was rudimentary at the time. But when it came on board, it was very forward thinking at the time, right? Renting out a part of your house or something. So it felt very advanced when I started using it, and I think when that app came online, that made it a lot easier.
Yeah, wow. I didn't even think about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I mean, an iPhone came out in 2008, so that
hmm
makes sense.
Yeah, there weren't a ton of apps when I started doing that sort of thing. So yeah, and the different, other organizations, businesses that have spun off from Airbnb, like the AirDNA and all the other multiple businesses that have sprung from that, but none of those were in existence at the time either. So
Right.
there was not as much technology to do research and things like that there are today.
Wow. Oh, that's super cool. That's interesting. So, okay, you mentioned that you invest all in one zip code. Can you expand on that and tell us like why? I mean, why one zip code? Is there something special about this particular zip code? And just expand a little more on that.
Sure. So the reason I ended up in that zip code was I was in a real estate group, and we were challenged to buy a property within 90 days, and so I was scouring everywhere trying to find it, and I found a house on Craigslist, and it happened to be in the zip code that I'm in, and I secured the house, and actually the gentleman I bought the house from was a private money lender, which we can certainly discuss too. So he ended up financing that house for me. And while we were working on that house, I realized the house two doors down was empty. And so I was too nervous to wholesale it, to be a wholesaler myself. So I called someone I knew who was a wholesaler, and he secured it for me like in an hour after I gave him the lead. I should have done it myself. And I bought that house. And so we had two houses on the same road. And then I just was in that area so much, I started seeing houses that I thought would be good for what I was doing. And there are 11 in the area where I buy. The houses are like between 900 and 1,200 square feet. They're not huge houses.
Sure.
It's an easy location to get on the main roads to get from one side of Rochester to the other. It's close to the hospitals, if that's, if it's for my travel nurses, but for other folks, Rochester is pretty easy to navigate. You're familiar with Wegmans grocery stores. One of the best things about upstate New York, and there's a Wegmans grocery store within a mile, so everyone really loves that. And it's just efficient. I have two sets of cleaners. They both live in this zip code. I have painters, different contractors that tend to live right in this area, and it's easy for them to go from one job to the other. So, and now I have a reputation among different investors and wholesalers. Like, if you see something in 14616, call Sally first. So I think that's also helped me kind of develop a brand or an awareness of, what it is I'm always looking for. So it's
No,
it's been
yeah,
helpful.
that makes a ton of sense. I mean, I find it's the same for me. I'm not like all in one zip code, but I am all in one metro area. I'm all
Right,
one. The city of Buffalo. It's a small city,
right.
and we're at 40 units now, and it's the same. I have one team that helps me manage all the properties, as opposed to I know a lot of people will have some properties here, some properties there, and but each time you expand to a new market, like you do have to build out like a new
You have to,
team. You gotta
exactly.
have new
Yeah, yeah.
contractors,
Hmm.
new all these, like you're almost like starting over, right? So I really do. I'm of the same mindset, kind of where it's like I would
And
rather.
you're from Buffalo, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
So
I'm born and raised
you
in
know
Buffalo.
the area. Yeah, you know
Mhm.
what's a great place. You know to tell people. Like I like to tell my guests where to, go visit this place. Make sure you do this while you're there. And we were saying before we went live on the call that someone that's a national housing provider reached out to me yesterday and said something about Buffalo. I was like, Christian is Buffalo. I mean, it's like you're developing that brand name as well. Like if someone has a request in Buffalo, people are going to think of you automatically. So I think that's invaluable, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of been my, I guess my goal has been to like become like the go-to guy for my city.
Yep.
And if and when I do expand, I'd like to probably do that same thing where it's like I go into a new market, probably a smaller, like small to mid-sized city, and become the go-to guy for that city as well.
Right.
As opposed to doing like, okay, I have a couple units there, a couple units that, like this. Because it's like, man, every time you pick up a couple new units, like or every time you're in a new market, like you got to start your team back,
Right.
whatever. And
Right.
it's like, it's been great because I have, this, all of my team members have been with me for, I mean, at least a year, but they all like know my properties. You know what I mean? Like
It
yeah,
makes
we all
everything very efficient. And then
yeah.
when you do go to a different location, you'll have all your processes in place. Like you've got them all honed in now. You've got them all refined. Like this is what we do. And I bet the second location you build is going to just be so much quicker to get it up and running because here's what we do when we take over take over an area.
Seriously, no,
Yeah.
Sally, I liked it because I started my first short-term rental in November of 2018, and I'm all arbitrage, right? It took me 3 years to get from zero unit or from 1 unit to 7 units, right? 3 years. Now, since then, it's taken me just a little over 2 years to go from 7 to 40.
Hmm.
So, like, that's just to say for me, it grew. Now, I started when I was young. I was 21 years old when I started my first arbitrage. I knew nothing. Like, I was starting from scratch, just dropped out
Hmm.
of college. Um, but it took me 3 years just to like kind of start to figure out this business and start to
What works?
understand,
Yeah.
yeah, what works, what am I even doing, like what's going on. And then once I kind of got some of that stuff in place, got an idea of what I was doing, then I met some of the right landlords and stuff, and was able to take it from 7 to 40 in just short 2 years. So yeah, that's just to say
So do you
that
belong to like a chamber of commerce in Buffalo or anything like that?
honestly, I don't. I I would definitely consider looking into that. Can you, like, are you a part of a chamber of
Yeah,
commerce?
so I joined where my zip code is the town of Greece, which is a western suburb of Rochester. And in my tourism career, I was heavily invested in different chambers of commerce, and I know how effective they can be because it's full of small business people. So I joined the Greece Chamber of Commerce, and I've already gotten 3 leads from there. And it's the saying, you get as much out of something as you put into it, right? So I go to a monthly meeting. I stop by and drop off brochures, which they'll display, but it's just been a matter of once a month on Friday mornings, they have a networking breakfast. And I go and I stand up and say the same thing every month is, my name is Sally. I have furnished rentals for, relocating or transitioning medical professionals, blah, blah, blah. And it's a very good group for people recommending other people. Like I've had,
Mm,
like I said, I've had 3 referrals already, and I'm building that brand as like, if you need something, call Sally. She can, she's got housing. So yeah, I think that would be good because that's another benefit of being in a specific area is you're leveraging that, right? And
that's huge.
especially like
Yeah.
in Buffalo, you've got people coming for work for 3 months and they just need a place for 3 months, and you would be top of mind for a lot of people if you get involved in the chamber.
Oh, that's huge, Sally. I gotta look into that. Is that
Yeah.
something? Do you typically like have to pay a fee or something to join that, or
There
you?
is a fee and it's minimal. I
Yeah.
think mine was less than $300 for the year. But again, you get out what you put into it, right? I go,
Oh,
I go, I was just at the office earlier this week, and dropped off brochures, and the president was there, and apparently it was late afternoon, and he just came and sat out sat out in the lobby with me, and I was like, this is invaluable, and he said, this is such a great service you're providing, and I thought, he's very well connected in Rochester, so it was worth it for me to stop in for 10 minutes. So that kind of thing happens, when you're involved. So I encourage anyone that's in a location and trying to concentrate and get known, that definitely join a Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, that's huge. I'm definitely going to look into that probably right after.
Yeah, and it's a good business. You meet other business people, and you never know what kind of connections. Like, actually, I have met Ladybug All Pest Solutions, and I said to them, well, let me take your card. I hope I never have to call you. But sure enough, one of my properties got ants, so they were the first person I called. So it's like you have a ready-made vendor list with that too. So it's great.
No, that's super cool. Okay,
Yeah.
wow, that's amazing. So Sally, could you tell us a little bit about your portfolio that you have? Because I know you own some. I think you have some arbitrage. What does your portfolio mix look like right now?
So unlike you, I own most of mine, so I don't have 40. That's a goal. But no, actually, my goal is 12 to 15 properties. I think that's really going to be my sweet spot. So I own 6 properties that are midterm rentals. All of them are rented. And the other trend I've been seeing, I don't know if you're seeing it as well, is everyone's extending for a second contract. So what was originally 3-month leases, everyone is now 6-month leases. That's just been a continual cycle that I'm seeing. I have one that's an arbitrage. It's a duplex. I have half the duplex, and the landlord lives on the other half. That's worked out really great. And as I was saying to you beforehand, I'm going to look at another arbitrage opportunity tomorrow. Which is a first-time landlord. It was their primary home. They've moved out and decided they want to try to rent it. So I'm going to go meet with him. And what was really nice was I said, listen, if you'd like to talk to the other landlord I rent from, I can connect you to. And apparently they had a wonderful conversation, which I'm thankful for. And he's like, yeah, let's move forward. So I'm going to see the property tomorrow. And if I can get it June 1st, my goal will be to get it furnished by June 14th and up on Furnished Finders, which is where I list everything. So and then I'm closing on another one next Friday. That's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, which is kind of a sweet spot for me. Okay. And that's going to need some work. So that probably won't be ready till maybe the middle of July, but that should be coming on board. One of the trends I'm seeing, I don't know if you're seeing this, is more and more of my travelers have pets. They're coming with dogs. And so some of my properties have fenced backyards, and, they are thrilled for that. They'll be like, I think they would pay more than what I'm charging it for a fenced backyard. So that's another thing I'm starting to look for. Does it have a fenced backyard? That's a bonus for me at this point.
That's great. I don't have too many pets. Most of my properties are listed as no pets allowed. We do make exceptions on case-by-case basis and charge an extra pet fee, but I only have a couple single family homes in my portfolio. A lot of them are apartments. So I don't know if they're always the best fit for those who have pets, although a lot of the apartment buildings are pet friendly. But just I think because I think I have like 26 of my units are studio apartments. So they're small. So for someone who wants a pet, usually they probably want more like a single family home with a fenced in backyard.
Yeah.
I only have like 2 or 3 units that are that meet that criteria.
Yeah. It's been interesting. It's a trend I'm seeing increasing, because when I first started doing this, no one had pets, because I'm thinking they're all working 12-hour shifts. But what I'm seeing now is it's either a couple and one spouse stays home and works from home and there's pets, or it's someone that their dog is used to them working long shifts and it works out fine. So yeah, it's interesting.
That's cool. And are the properties that you own, are they mostly single family?
Yeah, I have one duplex, and it's an up and down duplex, so I will only put travel nurses in there, because most of mine, I don't know if you're the same, most of my travel nurses work evenings, so they sleep during the day. So I want to be really cognizant of the house needs to be quiet during the day, so I don't rent to like a family that's relocating to the area or anything like that. So that's a very quiet house on purpose.
Gotcha. Cool. And then when you're purchasing these properties, are you doing like renovations? You renovating them and everything as well?
Yeah, so I typically purchase really distressed properties. I love abandoned properties. If that's a hoarder house, I mean, I don't want to, I try very hard not to compete with people that are first-time home buyers because the properties I buy are typically, first-time home buyer type homes. So I buy homes that people couldn't move into. So again,
Gotcha.
hoarder houses, and we clean them out. Houses that have been empty for a few years. I have a lead on one I'm looking at that the father that lived there for many, many years passed away. The family all lives in other states and they just don't know what to do with that. So I'm hoping I'll be able to help them and just help them be able to take what they want out of the house and I'll deal with the rest of it. And then once we clean them out, then we do a renovation. And I'm actually working on getting some new contractors so I can have a couple crews and, we renovate them, put in new furnace, central air, that sort of thing, and then furnish them and get them right on Furnish Finder. So it's amazing between when I put them on Furnish Finder, I usually have requests within a few days. So.
Well, Rochester is a hot market.
I know. When we were at the Midterm Rental Summit, I was floored when they said that was I was one of the top markets in the country after I think it was Redland City, California, and then Honolulu, Hawaii, and then Rochester, New York.
Rochester, New York.
That's
Yep,
crazy.
that's what the CEO of Furnish Finder
Furnish Finders.
told us at the MTR.
We should talk about that conference. That conference was out of this world, wasn't it?
It was so much fun.
It was awesome. And anyone that's thinking of doing midterm rentals, you should definitely join us next year because it is just so energetic and the speakers were like amazing. And the networking was out of this world. It was awesome.
It was great. I met so many cool people. That was the second annual MTR Summit. I've been to both now, and I already bought my ticket for next year's.
You're an OG. You were there at the beginning. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And there was great vendors. I mean, really interesting vendors of whose businesses I had no idea about. So I learned a lot from them too. So
yeah, I agree. The vendors were great too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious that the properties that you're buying though, are you buying these off market or are you finding them on market, or how are you finding these properties?
Yeah, it's a good question. I get them however I can get them. It's a little bit harder now to find deals off market just because everything, even if it's a house that's very distressed, they're still throwing them on the MLS and they're still selling. So the one I'm closing on next week, I did get off the MLS. It definitely needs some work. There's some plumbing issues, and it's small, but yeah, it's definitely going to need some work. And then I work with a private money lender. So I'm self-employed, so banks don't necessarily love loaning me money. But I have a private money lender that I work with, and he has financed all my purchases. And I actually had him earlier this year come to see two of my properties, the duplex and then another property they were working on, just so he gets a sense of exactly, the level we do at renovating. And he knows my plan of travel nurses and that thing. So he and I have, maybe 8-9 deals we've done together. And, sometimes I think, I should try and branch out and find other people, but it's so easy to work with him. And, I pay him back in a timely manner and refinance the house. And it's worked well. So I'm not going to mess with it for now.
Gotcha. No, that's super cool. So basically, you developed a good relationship with a private money lender. He lends you the money, and then does that mean you're buying the houses in cash?
So yeah, so I'll get the money from him. So let's say a house is $150,000. He charges 12% interest plus 2 points. So I'm going to do even easier math. $100,000. I owe him $1,000 a month in an interest-only payment. And then I also have to pay $2,000, so the 2% in points up front. So that's
like one time?
One time for the $2,000. And I have between at least 7 months, I have to hold the loan up to 12. So I can refinance anywhere within that. I have to wait at least 7 months for that before I can do that. And then, that usually is what it takes me to get it up and running and furnished and everything. And then I can refinance it.
Okay. And then, so he's lending you the money to do the renovations as well. Is that?
He has in the past. I can build that in. And when we build in renovations, we do it as a draw. So if I spend $8,000 at Home Depot, I'll submit receipts to his attorney for $8,000 and they'll release the funds to me. So they don't
Oh,
typically just give me a chunk of change. If it's under $10,000, he will, but typically we do it as a draw.
okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Cool. And then you mentioned 7 to 12 months. Why is that? Is that because of the bank's rules, or is that because of that's the private money lenders?
That's his. I know that there's some folks that'll do 3 month seasoning or 6 month
Okay.
seasoning. He does 7, and it works. It works fine for me. I don't have an aggressive renovation team yet, so and even if I do get it done and I'm renting it, I just pay that interest, whatever, another month or two till it's time to renovate, to renew with him, and finance out of that. So it's worked out well for me.
That's cool. No,
Yeah.
that's really interesting for me to learn about, just because I've said I
Well,
don't.
if you're ever looking for a private money lender, you let me know. I'll connect you. He's a great guy.
Okay, I
And
appreciate it.
he invests all over New York, so
That's
you'd be in
awesome.
his zone.
Okay, cool. That I appreciate that. That's cool. Cool. So how do you manage all your midterm rentals? Because you've got 7 of them going on now. Do you have like a management software you use, or what is your like daily operations kind of look like?
Yeah, so I use Trello, which is a project management software, and I love it, and it's free. If you get more than 10 boards, or in our world 10 properties, there you can get there's a fee, a monthly fee. I'm only at 9, so I mean it's been free up until now, and when it's time for me to pay, I will gladly pay. It's
Right, right.
really visual. Is that what you use?
No, I use Monday.com.
Oh, okay. Yep. Kind of similar. I mean,
Similar.
yeah. Yep. And I think it's so important because I mean, I can put, if I see something on Pinterest I can throw it into Trello. If I have an image of something that this is how I want this to look, I put it in Trello. We do weekly lists. It's worked well. My contractors that I was using was willing to download the app, so he had the app on his phone, so he was able to see, oh, this is what she wants to do. We put punch lists in there when we get to the end of all the last little things you got to do. We would have a punch list in Trello. I think that's really the key. It helps you stay organized. And then I have a big whiteboard. It's probably sound old fashioned, but I have a big whiteboard in my office that has my quarterly goals, and I know what I need to do. And I look at that every day too. So, and I use Google Drive for a lot of stuff. So
Mhm.
it's easy for me to track things in there as well. So,
That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. And so you mentioned that you list all your properties on Furnish Finder. Are you are you listing them anywhere else, or is there any other way that you're getting leads? I guess you mentioned Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, Furnish Finders worked so well for me. I'm keeping everything booked. So,
Oh,
and what I like about Furnish Finders, and this as well, is if you are getting a nurse coming through that platform, I just ask the nurses to send me a copy of their contracts from the hospital with their private information blanked out. That way, I know if they're going to a hospital, they've already been vetted. So I
mhm.
don't make them do background checks. If I were to get people that were not coming for nursing, I would definitely do background checks. But it's worked out really well. I like that platform. I know when we were at the summit, they said they're going to be revamping the website quite a bit. So I'll look forward to seeing what that looks like. But it works really well for me. And I feel like those are vetted people. Whereas, I used to put things on Craigslist and you'd get everyone, or, Facebook, you just get it. And I don't want to spend all that time vetting, knowing darn well that 90% of the people probably aren't qualified, right? It's just not the
Sure.
best use of my
Yeah.
time. So, yeah.
I'm interested. Have you considered listing your because Furnish Finder is great for me too, but I list all my properties on Airbnb as well with a 30-night minimum, and I get a lot of bookings through Airbnb that way. Have you ever considered doing that?
I haven't, only because I get booked so quickly on Furnish Finder.
Yeah,
And
I guess you don't need
as
it.
my portfolio grows, I would definitely consider that. And if I were to go to a second destination, which I'm considering, and it's not as hot as Rochester, then that would be definitely my go-to for sure, for sure. Yeah. So let me ask you, if it's over 30 days and they book through that, do you try to get them off the platform to book, or do you book within the platform?
No, I have a lot of people that book right over Airbnb, and they book 2, 3 months right over
Okay.
Airbnb. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, And because you have to be very careful, obviously, with Airbnb, you don't want to, you know, you can't just send a message over Airbnb saying,
Right.
hey, you
Right.
know, text me at this number, or like,
Right.
let's take, you can't, you have to be very tactful. So,
Right.
um, if someone reaches out to me on Airbnb, I'll typically encourage them to make the booking right over Airbnb. But I will also, what I do that's kind of subtle is like, say someone sends me an inquiry over Airbnb, I'll send them a message back, and at the end of the message, I will tell them, I'll give them my full name and I'll give them the name of my company.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes what people will do is they'll Google the name of my company. I don't tell them to Google my
Sure.
name. I
No.
don't tell them, but I
Yep.
just give them my name and my company, and then sometimes they'll Google me and then find me to book direct that
Yeah.
way. But I always I'm like cognizant that Airbnb is watching every
Yeah.
message that I send.
Yes.
So I'm very like, you know, if
Yeah.
someone asks, hey, could we book direct? I'm
Nope.
like, no, we have to book on Airbnb, but here's my name and here's my company name. But you know,
Right. So do you use the same rate on Furnish Finder as you do on Airbnb, or is there an adjustment?
no, yeah, well, they're the Airbnb fees, but we do
Right.
basically the same rate. We add the fees.
Okay.
Um, you know, so there's a 3% host fee. So basically, if I'm charging, let's just say 2,000 on Furnish Finder,
Mm-hmm.
then on Airbnb I'm charging 2,000 per month plus the 3%, so that would
Gotcha.
be 2,060.
So
And
you
then what I
pass that
do,
on.
I pass that fee on.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
so it's the Airbnb fees get passed on.
Okay.
So it is more expensive for the guests.
Yeah.
Um, but and I don't do variable rate pricing for the most part. I do a flat rate pricing. So for example, in this example, right, $2,000 rental, I'll charge, okay, because of the fees, I'm charging 2,060 per month. I'll just divide that number by 30, and
Mm.
my daily rate, whatever that is, maybe it's $67 or
Right.
something, right?
Right. Right.
Daily rate will be $67 with a 30-night minimum, and then that's it. That's my
Gotcha.
pricing strategy.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh, I'll
I
keep that
think,
in mind. Yeah. If I, like I said, if there's another market where Furnish Finder isn't as much demand, that would definitely be my go-to for sure. So I'll have to reach out to you and ask you when and if I get to that point.
yeah. Airbnb has been a really good lead
Yeah.
source for me,
Well,
and then
there's so many eyes on it, right? I mean, you're not going to find a bigger platform for people looking to find some
there's
places.
so much traffic on
Yeah.
Airbnb.
Yeah.
It's just there's so much traffic,
Yeah.
and then especially when you create your listings in a way that cater to midterm rental tenants, where most Airbnb hosts are not. So
Correct.
it's like you're creating a niche, like you're like, you know, marketing to a niche market
Hmm. Hmm.
within Airbnb,
And I'm sure even
and
things like the pictures make a big difference for they don't necessarily need to see the pool toys or things like that. They want to see
exactly,
quiet.
exactly.
And yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, literally in my listings, I put photos of the nearby hospitals, and you know, like I literally
Brilliant.
create my listing to speak
Yeah.
to my
Yeah.
midterm rental target market.
Yeah. Yeah. Very smart. Very smart. Yeah. Yeah. You got
Cool.
to speak to your clients.
Yeah, no, exactly. So we're a little over 30 minutes in. Guys, if you have any questions that you want to ask Sally or I directly, please feel free to put them in the chat. We're here for the next 15 minutes. We're happy to answer any questions you might have about midterm rentals, buying properties, arbitrage, whatever you want to talk about.
Midterm Rental Summit.
Yeah, midterm rental summit, whatever you want to talk about, put it into the chat, and we're happy to talk. While you're doing that, I do want to let you know that if you want to learn more about growing your midterm rental business, whether it is through owning property or with rental arbitrage and co-hosting, I do have a super affordable coaching program. It's currently only $149 a month. Guys, I'm literally giving this stuff away. In this
I
program, we
told them
do
this is
live.
too cheap.
What's that?
I said, this is too cheap what you're doing. You're
I know
way more
dude,
valuable. Way more valuable.
I just can't. I need people to talk to about midterm about midterm rentals
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I just can't. I just need to talk about it, right? So
Yeah.
that's why, yeah, in this program we do live Q&A calls every single week, where you can ask me directly questions like specific to your business, as well as you get access to over 80 video modules. And so my assistant will go ahead and drop the link in the comments right now so that you can learn more about the program. You're also welcome to schedule a free 15-minute call with me to see if the program is a good fit for you. Sally, so we talked about your management software. Are you using any other tools? Are you using like AI or anything within your business?
Actually, I do. I use Chat GPT to create. Well, one of the first things I did was used it to create a shopping list for everything I need for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. And what I've learned with using Chat GPT is it's all about the prompt you write. Right? If you write a really succinct, well-worded prompt, you'll get exactly what you need. So I love learning with Chat GPT. So I created definitely my shopping list, which every time I get a property, that's what I use to get all the basics. I used it to create some of the copy for my website, and that when you use it, you obviously have to read through and tweak it and but
Mhm.
it really has done a very good job. I've written a couple articles about midterm rentals I made available, and had Chat GPT do the draft for me.
Yep.
It's such a great tool. What are you using it for?
Dude, I love ChatGPT. We've been having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
All sorts of things, kind of similar like to what you've been doing. Actually, one thing that my VA and I have been doing is we're training ChatGPT to basically become our customer service rep. So what we've done is I fed all my templates into a ChatGPT. You can have like different conversation threads or whatever.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we actually created a thread that's like it's Airbnb customer support or whatever MTR customer
Hmm.
support,
Hmm.
and we fed it all of my templates. We fed it tons of my like past conversations and stuff. So we
Ah,
tell it that hey, like you're an MTR super host. Your job is to be our customer service rep, and then so basically we trained it on my like customer service style on how I speak and the templates. We even give it all of
brilliant.
our rules, all of
Hmm.
our like all this information. And then so when we get messages from guests, if my VA doesn't have an exact template on how to respond to a certain message, he can ask the Chat GPT bot, and the Chat GPT will like create
I love
responses for
that.
it.
It's
And
amazing.
so, yeah, it's like the AI stuff is crazy. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
scares me. I think it's going to take over the world, and probably my generation is screwed. And whatever. I've watched too many sci-fi movies, but
It's terrifying
um,
and helpful all at the same time.
what are you going to do? So Katie Malonga asked, what is some advice that you would give yourself at the beginning of your midterm rental journey, knowing what you know now? It's a good question.
Good question, Katie. Will you go first?
Okay. I guess my advice would be um, honestly just I wouldn't change anything. Like I said, it took me 3 years to get to 7 arbitrage units. And when I started my first one, I screwed up a lot of things. And honestly, I wouldn't even take that back. My advice would be I would just say, like, you kind of just have to jump into it,
Hmm.
continue to learn, continue to network, rely on other people that have done what you like, are have done what it is that you're trying to do. But at the end of the day, like most of the learning comes from just doing
Doing.
and
Hmm.
taking action. And sometimes it just like comes from making those mistakes sometimes and learning from them
Yep.
and then moving on and going on to the next one. So yeah, my main piece of advice would be just to like take action and honestly just make mistakes and just learn from those mistakes, and then also just learn from people who are ahead of you and have done what it is that you are looking to do.
That's very good advice. So you started with short-term rentals and then you switched to midterm?
Correct. I switched
So-
to midterm in April of 2020, right after COVID hit.
Okay. So
So
you had a
when
year with short-term rentals?
I did about a little like a year and a half of short-term rentals, and at that time in April of 2020, I had 4 arbitrage units that were all running short-term, and then obviously COVID hit, all my
Mhm.
bookings canceled. I was freaking out because I didn't have much savings, and I had 4 leases that I had, 4 apartments that I had to pay rent on. And I actually got lucky. The way I stumbled upon midterm rentals is that I got lucky that in that time on Airbnb, I got like a 2-month booking from a travel nurse.
Ah.
And I was like, oh, like at that time I'd never gotten my longest booking before that was maybe 10 days or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, whoa, like 2-month booking, like, whoa, I wonder if there's more of that. And so I started looking into it, and I ended up, by the end of that April 2020, I got all 4 of my apartments rented with midterm tenants. And then I was like, holy smokes, this is so much easier.
Yeah, right.
Like, this is so much easier than what I was doing, running all the short-term rentals and stuff.
Yeah.
And since then, I've just gone all in on midterm rentals. Where I know, during COVID, a lot of Airbnb hosts like went to midterm for like a couple months and then immediately switched back to short term as soon as there was demand again for the short term. Right. But I just stuck. I was like, dude, I'm not going back. This midterm stuff is powerful. It's cool.
You know what I like about that story is that you were in a place where, like, you had no one and you had 4 leases due, and a lot of people would have said, well, I failed, I'm out, this is terrible, I can't do it. And you stuck with it, and then you found an opportunity. And because that's one of the things I would say is, this is a journey. And you're going to make tons of mistakes, and every mistake is a learning lesson. And there's going to be days, weeks, months where you're like, I don't know, it's hard, this is really, really hard. And then you got to keep going. And on the other side of it, you're smarter, you have more skills,
Mm-hmm.
So I think, Katie, what I would say is, you're never going to know everything you need to know, and you're never going to have enough money. Just dive in because you learn as you go. Just like Christian said, we all have figured things out. And, if you go to real estate meetup groups, you'll shorten your learning curve because people of those are very helpful and always willing to give out information and share resources, I have found. And secondly, I thought when I was on the outside of real estate looking in that first you had to have $1 million before you can invest. Well, I learned that is not at all the case. You'll find people that want to loan you money because you are going to take good care of their money and help them make more money. So don't wait to know everything and don't wait for money. Just get going. That's my advice.
Yeah, there's no one that wants to give you money more than private money lenders. They want to give you money.
Yeah, to make 12%. Yeah, they're pretty happy about that.
Yeah. Katie asks, are there any books or other research resources you'd recommend? As far as midterm rentals, there's not many books on it. 30-Day Stay by Sarah Weaver and Ziana McIntyre is a good one, especially for beginners. Actually, after reading that book, they inspired me to go and book a 6-week trip to Argentina. Because in that book, they're like travel girls, like whatever. They do midterms and travel all around the world. And I listened to that book when I already had like 20-something midterm rentals, and I'm like stuck in Buffalo in like December, and I'm like freezing my ass off. And so I listened to that book, and then like a couple days after listening to it, I went and I booked a 6-week trip to Argentina, which is where I have family down there. So I went.
Was it amazing?
It was awesome. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, it was amazing. My mom's from there originally. So
okay. Oh, so yeah. I think that's one of the things about midterm rentals is it's not as much hands-on as short-term rentals, right? So, and if you get your systems in place, you can take a break. But I would definitely say 30-Day Stay. The other book, I read a lot of Mike McAllowett's business books. He writes for entrepreneurs, and the Pumpkin Plan is what really helped me realize midterm rentals are a really good niche, and zoning in on the zip code has helped me grow faster. So anything by Mike McAllowitz, I definitely recommend too, but Pumpkin Plan, probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, and the last resource I'm going to give you, Katie, is I'm going to have to do a selfless plug, is my coaching program. Again, for $150 a month, I basically share everything I've learned over the past
I would agree.
5 years. So that's a pretty good shortcut if you're looking to learn midterm rentals.
Because when you have people in your program, do you like hold their feet to the fire and say, okay, you got 90 days to get a property. I've given you all the tools. You don't need any more. You don't need any more research or calls. Get going.
Yep. That's a lot of the conversations that we have are exactly that. It's like, hey, like, you just gotta actually take action.
Pick them out of the nest, right?
Exactly, 100%. That's where a lot of people get stuck, especially when they're just starting or haven't maybe started a business before in the past. A lot of it is just like, hey, it's time to take action. You know enough. You're you're ready.
You're ready.
You've researched, you've learned, you know your market, you know everything. It's time to take action, right? So that does end up being a lot of our conversations, and then it's really fun once people start to get. We have some people in the group now that have 5 units. We've got a guy with 13, another guy 18, and those conversations are really fun because now we're just talking strategy and we're talking like, okay, how do you handle this situation, that situation? But so it gets really fun.
You got to get in the game to play the game, right?
Yeah, exactly that.
Great.
So,
awesome.
So great. That's guys. It's 1:45. So time is up, unfortunately. Sally, thank you so much for hopping on this call. It was such a pleasure to speak with you. I actually learned a bunch. I'm going to be checking out my local Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, good.
Sure.
Good. Well, I learned a ton. I love spending time with you because it's like you were saying, when you're around other midterm rental people, you're like, it's a great market. It's a great business model. And I think we are on, what did Jesse tell us at Midterm Rental Summit? Like they're just chalking the game now. We're not even at the first inning yet with midterm rentals.
Seriously, no, it's really like we're just at the beginning of really what's like a brand new industry. We're at like where short-term rentals was like back in 2009. Wow, Sally, like you were actually like an innovator of the STR space. Yeah, an early adopter of the STR space, and now look at you, here you are, 10 years later or whatever, and you're an early adopter of the MTR space too. So you really are just an early adapter and innovator.
I love it. It's fun. So, in 10 years, Christian will be like, what can we do on the moon? We'll be on the moon.
Exactly that. Cool. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching, and thanks again, Sally, for being on.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was great. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.